Now, we already know that Georgia had record turnout numbers, both in total and amongst African Americans, with nearly 4 million votes cast. Of that number, more than 1 million were black. Now, according to the Georgia Secretary of State website, and now a University of Georgia poll of voters who participated in the 2020 midterm election, shows that everything went a heck of a lot better than the fearmongers would have you believe. The poll asked, among other things, how they would rate their overall experience voting. Of the black voters surveyed, 0% said the experience was poor. 0%. But will we hear any retractions from the alarmists? Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, who signed the bill, insisted it would expand access. And whether it happened as a result of the law or in spite of it, it happened. And while 0% of black voters had a poor experience voting, 72.6%, meanwhile, nearly 3/4 of black voters asked, said their overall experience was excellent. Let's go now to Zaid Jilani, Georgia-based digital reporter for NewsNation, who's been tracking the voting throughout the last election. Zaid, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. These numbers, to me, particularly from this study, are pretty stunning, considering that Georgia also had record turnout. So you would think with record turnout, there could be record problems.
Yeah, I think this was a really, really important study actually produced by my alma mater, University of Georgia, where they surveyed voters about their voting experience, right? People on both sides were speculating about the impact of the law, but this survey kind of allows us the first look at how Georgians themselves viewed the impact of the voter law and the different restrictions and also expansions of access in some cases that were put in since 2021. Something that's really interesting is they asked the voters how long they waited in line, right? And something that I found quite astounding was that 96% of black voters said they waited less than 30 minutes to vote. A third of them faced no waits at all at the polls. And actually, the percentages for white voters were actually slightly higher in terms of how long they waited to vote. So I think in terms of the evidence that's been gathered and the data that we have now, it doesn't appear that black Georgians and African American communities were disproportionately impacted by the law or obstructed in their voting in any way, both in terms of the evidence, in terms of who actually voted, in terms of the numbers. At certain points, we actually had record early voting turnout in Georgia. And now, in terms of this survey work, we see very, very few people actually saying that they had a harder time voting. In fact, 91% of black voters said that voting in this election was actually easier than the last election, or there was no difference between this and the last election.
Well, so have we heard any apologies or clarifications from the many companies or individuals who spoke out, insisted that this was going to have a dire impact on the elections?
Look, I think as reporters and as folks in the media, we have a job to look at laws like this and really scrutinize sort of what changes are being made, what is the reasoning behind the changes, and what are the impact of the changes. I think that it's a mistake often when we look at political rhetoric from the left or the right, when it's about voter fraud or voter suppression, and we kind of take it at face value, right? There's no sort of filter in between what these politicians or maybe activist groups or sort of pundits on right or left say and what we're actually digesting. And I think, yeah, you're right. In this case, a lot of people, I think, went a little bit further with their rhetoric than maybe the data justifies.
Right. And look, I said at the outset, I said it when we did the segment back before the election. We did the segment after the election. And I said again and again that I don't think that a lot of the changes made a lot of sense in terms of Georgia law, but they also weren't sort of out of the realm of normalcy with regard to other states' laws. And it just seems to me that the kind of rhetoric, calling it Jim Crow laws, et cetera, this is all about, for me, media accountability, and I'm certain that we're not going to see it. But I think it's important that you've highlighted this. Zaid, thanks very much for coming on the program. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.